And thanks to at home for joining us this hour. Really happy to have you here. So this did not go well for the Trump administration. This is what it looks like in a court of law when you flounder and lose, and there is a court reporter there to write it all down. The judge. Right now, the court has before it a motion to enforce. I think there are some basic questions that have been posed here. The restraining order has been in effect for now 12 days, since February 13th, and there are just some basic questions. The restraining order was clear, and the court has said it was clear that defendants, meaning the Trump administration, could not continue the blanket suspension of foreign aid funds pending a review. That was based on a finding that the plaintiffs had shown irreparable harm. It sounds like there's evidence right now that that irreparable harm has deepened. Now, the plaintiffs seem to be saying that the blanket pause by the Trump administration was not lifted in any meaningful sense. The judge then says to the lawyer for the Trump administration, quote, "I'd like you to tell me in simple terms what action you are aware of that the agency has lifted the blanket pause. Are you aware of steps that the agencies here have taken to actually unpause the disbursement of funds?" Trump administration lawyer response. So let me focus on that last point, if I might. The judge. Well, I actually want you to focus on my question. I do want to hear your full answer, but has the government unfrozen disbursements as to those contracts or assistance agreements for at least that period? Trump administration lawyer. So for the period before the restraining order, this is going back to the February 18th joint status report, the plaintiff's characterization of some of those decisions, and there's a wide variety, right, of grants and foreign assistance arrangements, contracts, was that all of them were under the same challenged authority. So there was a process. The judge, hey, the judge says, that's in the court transcript, hey, I guess I'm not sure why I can't get a straight answer from you on this. Are you aware of an unfreezing of the disbursement of funds? You've acknowledged that under the restraining order, any of the terminations or suspensions that took place before February 13th are invalid and shouldn't be given effect. Are you aware of steps taken to actually release those funds? Trump administration lawyer. I'm not in a position to answer that. The judge. Well, we're 12 days into the temporary restraining order, and you're here representing the government. You had represented in the initial February status report from the government, from the defendant, and, you know, made issue of that it had been 5 days and there had been a holiday weekend. Well, now we are 12 days in, and you can't answer me whether any funds that you've acknowledged are covered by the court's order have been unfrozen? Trump administration lawyer. All I can do really is say that the preparations are underway for the joint status report on compliance. The judge, I'm asking you right now what you are aware of. Sounds like the answer is no. If the answer is no, you can say no, that you're not aware of any actions to unfreeze the funds. I am asking you, this hearing is about enforcing the temporary restraining order and compliance with the temporary restraining order. Trump administration lawyer. So I do understand that. The judge, I want to know what actions have been taken, including whether funds have been unfrozen based on the temporary restraining order, and if so, what funds have and what funds have not. Trump administration lawyer. These would be, I think, the logical subjects of the joint status report that is underway. I don't have the ability to recite those particular facts at this hearing. The judge. 12 days into the restraining order. You can't give me any facts about funds being unfrozen based on the restraining order? Trump administration lawyer. Quote, I can. I mean, the judge. Counsel, I hope you understand why this is important. As the attorney who is presumably advising your clients, and you're here representing them. The court has been clear. So if I were you, I would think it would be very important to point to some sort of directive or something that indicates that the suspensions that are happening under lawful authority. The judge then announces there at the hearing that he needs a 15-minute recess, but don't go far because it's only going to be 15 minutes. And after that, he's going to rule. And he comes back after 15 minutes and he issues his ruling, which says in part, plaintiffs have submitted evidence that defendants, meaning the Trump administration, have not lifted the suspension or freeze of funds as the temporary restraining order required. The Trump administration, the defendants, have not rebutted that evidence. And when asked today, defendants were not able to provide any specific examples of unfreezing funds pursuant to the court's order. The very point of a temporary restraining order is to prevent irreparable harms in the course of considering a preliminary injunction. So for these reasons, the court is going to grant plaintiff's motion to enforce. So to be clear, and to give effect to the court's temporary restraining order, the court orders as follows, quote, by 11:59 p.m. on February 26, 2025, that's tomorrow, the restrained defendants shall pay all invoices and letter of credit drawdown requests on all contracts for work completed prior to the entry of the court's order on February 13th. Defendants shall take no actions to impede the prompt payment of appropriated foreign assistance funds and shall take all necessary action to ensure the prompt payment of appropriated foreign assistance funds. The parties remain under an order to file a joint status report by noon tomorrow. That report shall confirm what steps have been taken by that time. And that report shall confirm that such disbursements will be made by 11:59 p.m. tomorrow. And in the interest of ensuring compliance with the court's order, listen to this. To the extent there remain any disputes as to compliance, the parties shall identify agency officials, employees, or other witnesses who can testify under oath as to those disputes. And scene. Federal District Court Judge Amir Ali in Washington today telling the Trump administration, you shut down foreign aid funds, and it appears at first glance that you were not legally allowed to do that. I ordered you to immediately restart those funds, and you have not done so. You now have until tomorrow to do it, and if you can't do it, or you have some excuse that makes you think you still ought not do it, I want the relevant officials in my courtroom and under oath telling me why they are not doing it. The motion to enforce is granted. Get those funds out the door by midnight tomorrow night. This nonsense is over. Just a humiliation for the Trump administration in court today. Not only not doing what they are legally required to do, but unable to even spit out a complete sentence justifying why they're not complying with the court's order. Just a legal disaster and a humiliation. And that court recessed after the judge gave his order at 1:09 p.m. today. And exactly 10 minutes later, at 1:19 p.m., 10 minutes after that legal humiliation today, this New York Times headline posted, Doge quietly deletes the 5 biggest spending cuts it celebrated last week. So while we're on the theme of the Trump administration being humiliated, I mean, literally within 10 minutes of a federal judge ordering President Trump and his top campaign donor, Elon Musk, to undo the biggest thing they have yet done to the United States government, their shutdown of all foreign aid. 10 minutes after that court order to fix that by tomorrow or be prepared to be in my courtroom testifying under oath as to why you are breaking this lawful order. 10 minutes of that, within 10 minutes of that, the New York Times posts this story on how the 5 largest other things they claim to have done to the U.S. government aren't real. And so they've had to take them down off their website and stop claiming that they did them. Quote, last week, Elon Musk's government cost-slashing initiative, which he calls the Department of Government Efficiency, posted an online, quote, wall of receipts, celebrating how much it had saved by canceling federal contracts. Now, the organization has deleted all of the 5 biggest, quote, savings on that original list, after the New York Times and other media outlets pointed out that those lists were riddled with errors. Quote, the last of the original top 5 disappeared from the site in the early hours of Tuesday. The website offered no explanation for why it had removed some items. But these were the original 5 largest savings on its list. First, an $8 billion cut at ICE, at Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The actual contract in question was worth not $8 billion, but $8 million. Next, 3 $655 million cuts at USAID. Quote, this was actually a single cut that was erroneously counted 3 times. In addition to not being $655 million 3 times, it's now only listed once, and instead of being listed at $655 million, it's listed at $18 million. So they were off there by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. But wait, there's one more, a $232 million cut at the Social Security Administration, which appears actually, according to reporting from The Intercept, to be a project that is not worth $232 million. It is worth $560,000. So we're only off by... how big is the window on your calculator? And does it need batteries? So they're not sending their best. I mean, to the extent that we are supposed to think of the authoritarian overthrow of the U.S. system of government as some sort of benevolent mission, because these are math geniuses who are doing it, right? To the extent that that's why we're supposed to like the dismantling of the U.S. government, because they're so good at math, and so therefore this must be good for us. Yeah, it turns out their math doesn't work. And even though they are having to rescind by court order the things they are most proud of doing, the biggest things they're trying to do, or they're having to rescind from their wall of receipts everything they previously said about all their other best and biggest moves, even though all of this stuff is getting wound back. Literally, all of the biggest things they said they have done are now getting undone, or they never happened in the first place. Even still, though, it's not like they're getting better or more humble or more accurate over time. Back to that New York Times article today, quote, some of the new canceled contracts Doge added to its website this week appear to make some of the same types of errors. The largest savings on the latest version of its list is a $1.9 billion cut at the Treasury Department. But as reported in the Times last week, that contract was actually canceled last fall, when Joe Biden was president and when Doge did not yet exist. So that $1.9 billion isn't anything they did either. Even the stuff they say is their best, their biggest successes, their greatest hits, has all fallen apart under the most cursory scrutiny. And, you know, what have they done? They have fired a lot of people. And then they've had to unfire a lot of them when they realized that they actually had no idea who they were firing. We had the oops firings of workers at the National Nuclear Security Administration. Oops, wrong people to fire. Those had to be rescinded. Oops, had to hire those people back. We had the oops firings, the people who work on bird flu. Oops, wrong people to fire. Those people have to be unfired and brought back. Now, news that they're trying to unfire the people who work in really simple, really easy to replicate low productivity fields like overseeing the safety of the robots that do surgeries on humans. And the people who work on the safety of pacemakers and implanted defibrillators. Yeah, that's a waste of time. That's a waste of money. Who needs those things to be safe? Fire those people. Trying to unfire those people now. Today in Washington, there were more protests against these increasingly obviously shambolic efforts by the president's top campaign donor to try to destroy as much as he can of the U.S. government.
Hands off of research! Hands off of research!
Protesters rallying against the cuts the Department of Government Efficiency made to the medical field.
These cuts mean cancer patients left without hope.
Amelia Ventriglia, a researcher at the National Institutes of Health, says it's more than just people losing their jobs.
We're under so many freezes right now that stop the American taxpayer from receiving the medical advancements they paid for. This is theft.
Hours earlier, workers recently laid off by the federal government took their complaints directly to the Hart Senate office building on Capitol Hill.
At that Hart Senate office building on Capitol Hill, there were a lot of fired federal workers of all stripes who essentially declared their own job fair in the atrium of the Senate office building, and then they went Senate office to Senate office, carrying copies of their resumes, giving them to Senate office staff, trying to talk to U.S. senators about what they do and about the impact of their firings. They crowded into Senate office after Senate office after Senate office today. This follows the National Letter Carriers Union yesterday and people who support the post office showing up yesterday to give this answer to the Trump administration's efforts to dismantle the U.S. Postal Service, which I should mention is in the Constitution.
So what do we say today? What about tomorrow? What about Wednesday? What about next Monday? What about next month? What about next year? We don't stop. Hell no! Hell no! Hell no! Hell no!
The pushback against what Trump and his top campaign donor are doing to try to dismantle the government is real, and it is widespread, and it is increasingly sure-footed. It is in the courts where they are winning the overwhelming majority of court proceedings. It is protests in the streets and at government buildings, including protests that are seemingly increasingly effective at moving members of Congress and moving U.S. senators to at least pay attention to them. It is in pushback from federal workers themselves, including not just showing up and not just letting themselves be known and not just talking to the media and not just letting people know what they did, but we're also seeing principled resignations where people stayed as long as they could and pushed to stop what they were being told to do, and then they resigned so they could tell the public what was being done. Today, we can add to the list of principled resignations 21 people from doge. People who had been held over from the U.S. Digital Service because they were expected to work with Elon Musk's team at Doge. 21 of them resigned today saying, quote, "We will not use our skills as technologists to compromise core government systems, to jeopardize American sensitive data, or to dismantle critical public services. We will not lend our expertise to carry out or legitimize Doge's actions." Again, 21 members of the Doge service resigning today. The thing that is emerging, we're now 5 weeks and a day into this thing. The thing that is emerging as the real weak card in their hand, and I don't know if we should have known to expect this or not, but it's just becoming more and more increasingly obvious with each passing day. Their weakness is that they kind of suck at what they're trying to do. I'm sorry to use that phrase, but they really do appear to be terrible at their intentional actions, right? And, you know, you don't want like a surgical robot to be terrible at what it does. You don't want your letter carrier or your research scientist or your park ranger to be terrible at what they do. We need those folks to be good at what they do, and by and large, they are. The person you actually want to be terrible at his job is the guy who thinks it's his job to destroy your country's government. And Elon Musk is turning out to be very much up to that task. I mean, amid all the pushback of all these various kinds, the best assistance the pushback is getting from the Trump and Elon Musk side is that Elon Musk really does appear to have no idea what he's doing, and it is showing more and more every day. And so it is really hurting what he is trying to do, which is so sad. Just take, for example, a short version of this saga from the last few days of Elon Musk initiating this email to all federal workers, including, hopefully, some people who no longer have access to their email because he ordered that they be put on leave and locked out of government computer systems. Oops, but that's how he's trying to contact them now, by sending them emails to email addresses he won't allow them to check. Awesome. But this email, as you know, told everybody that they needed to give Elon Musk a list of the things they had done in the past week, or else. If they didn't send him this list, that would be taken as a resignation. And immediately we saw multiple government agencies tell their workers, do not do this. Do not respond to this. The Defense Department, the FBI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the State Department, the Homeland Security Department, the Education Department, the Commerce Department, the FDIC, the IRS, the Energy Department, FEMA, the CDC, the NIH, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, our beloved NOAA. They all told the people who work at those agencies, do not respond to this. And in that list, I just mentioned a few different components of the Department of Health and Human Services. Just looking at that one agency for a second to get a sense of how this played in an agency that is now run by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I mean, look at how this played there. Elon Musk sends this like middle of the night insane email to everybody who works at HHS, everybody who works in the rest of the government. At HHS, they initially told their employees Sunday morning that they needed to respond to this email and do what Elon Musk said. Then an hour later, an email went out from the Trump-appointed acting director of the NIH, which is part of Health and Human Services. And that person told all NIH employees, oh, no, do not respond to this. Then a few hours after that, HHS, as an overall agency, told all employees, actually pause, maybe hold just a second, we're not sure. The ultimate advice given to people who work at HHS was that they could respond to Elon Musk's threatening email if they wanted to, but they didn't have to. And if they did, quote, do not identify by name or title any other HHS employees with whom you have been working. Do not identify by case name or otherwise matters you are working on. Do not identify any specific grants or contracts or any specific grantees or contractors. If you are engaged in any scientific experiments, research, or reviews, do not provide information that could allow anyone to identify the precise nature of your work. The advice ended with this, quote, assume that what you write will be read by malign foreign actors and tailor your response accordingly. That's how well this thing is going. The Office of Personnel Management, which is the entity under which Musk sent out this insane, like, apparent prank email, the Office of Personnel Management then tried to sort of cancel Musk's threatening email, saying, oh, we can't believe anybody took that seriously. Why did you think you had to do that? Obviously, complying with that request would be totally voluntary. You don't have to respond. And if you don't send it back, that won't be taken as your resignation. Where did you get that idea?
Duck Walk by Ariel Williams. Henrietta Wilkins rushes to church one Sunday morning, accidentally leaving her gate open. Her duck, Duckwaisha, seizes the chance to take her 5 ducklings to the local pond. Along the way, the ducklings fall into a manhole, causing a town-wide rescue effort. After a frantic search, Duckwaisha finds her ducklings safely swimming in the pond, and the heartwarming story makes local news. Meanwhile, Henrietta realizes her mistake and panics, but the firemen reunite her with Duckwaisha and her ducklings, bringing a happy ending to their adventure.
Get your digital copy today at lulubooks.com and experience the adventure in EPUB or PDF format. Make sure you have a compatible reader to dive into this unforgettable journey. Don't miss out, unlock the secrets, and let the story begin.
In a quaint village, Jamie, a young baker living in a mushroom-shaped house, is beloved for his delicious, mushroom-shaped cakes. Lucas, a skilled handyman known for helping the townspeople, frequently visits Jamie for treats and to lend a hand. When Jamie's baking supplies are delayed due to a supplier going out of business, he becomes distraught. Lucas comforts him, and in that moment, they realize their growing feelings for each other. As Lucas helps Jamie find a new supplier and supports him through his struggles, their bond deepens into love. Soon, the village comes to see them as a perfect pair, celebrating their sweet connection. To get your copy of The Baker and the Handyman's Sweet Connection, please visit lulubooks.com. This is an electronic book, so be sure to have an EPUB or PDF reader to enjoy this heartwarming story by Ariel Williams.
To view more ebooks, click Linktree in bio.
The Park of Secrets.
In the year 2060, near the heart of Florida, just a stone's throw from Disney World, stood a theme park unlike any other, a place known as the House of Secrets. It was a magical park, much like a state fair, filled with towering rides, carnival games, and parades that drew people from all over the world. But among the grand Ferris wheel and the colorful day parade, there was one attraction that outshined them all, the parade princess, a mesmerizing mermaid named Kenya. Kenya was a sight to behold. At 22 years old, fresh out of college, she had the kind of beauty that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her brown skin glowed under the park lights, her hair a stunning mix of purple and pink that cascaded over her shoulders. Little pink hearts adorned her cheeks, and a ribbon of color stretched across her nose. But it wasn't just her beauty that made her special.
Discover the magic of the Park of Secrets. Step into a world of wonder with the Park of Secrets, a heartwarming tale by Ariel Williams that will captivate your imagination. This enchanting story is now available exclusively on Lulu Books.
Terms and Conditions of a King follows King, a young Arab-American man whose journey of self-discovery leads him through heartbreak, longing, and growth. After ending a promising but unsustainable relationship with Thomas, a man of status and high expectations, King finds himself grappling with loneliness and yearning for connection. His encounter with Malcolm, a charming but emotionally unavailable man, reveals the pitfalls of settling for less than what he deserves. Through it all, King's dreams, his growing independence, and his candid conversations with his confidant, Princess Ariel, guide him toward a powerful realization: self-worth cannot be compromised. Set against the backdrop of everyday struggles, budding careers, and the complexities of modern love, Terms and Conditions of a King is a story of resilience, introspection, and the courage to let go of what doesn't serve you. Ariel Williams weaves a tender and transformative narrative about learning to value oneself, even in moments of uncertainty, and believing in a future where true love and fulfillment are possible. For more, click tree link in profile.